Welcome to Spark Hour episode 18. Today we are very delighted to have Ms. Kim Tan, the CEO and founder of the Growth4Growth consultant company. As you know, right now, the digital transformation is going aligned with the Industrial Revolution 4.0. And if we look at the world, we can see that the world is changing. There's so much innovations, like new innovation, including AI, blockchains, machine learning, like cloud computing, big data, so on and so forth. And if you look at in Cambodia herself, we can see that Cambodia is also changing a lot, especially during the COVID-19 and after COVID-19. Whether it is in the study, work, or business environment, we can see a lot of change in terms of the digital transformations. And today, we are lucky enough to have Mrs. Kim Tan to share us on the digital transformation in terms of the leadership as well. So, Susai Bong. Yes. So today, we are very delighted to have you on in this episode. So first of all, may I help you to introduce yourself a little bit about you and also your company as well?
Sure. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me here. And I want to say thank you to you and your team at Decha Startup for having me here to speak about leadership and specifically leadership in digital transformation. My name is Kim Tan, and I am the founder and CEO for Growth4Growth consulting company. We mainly focus on capacity building for staff in organizations, meaning that we work hand in hand with different organizations to develop people through training and also supporting them in terms of implementing what was trained through coaching services to be sustainable for some of the topics that we do train. That is our main service. However, we also offer consulting services on various aspects of business functions, and one of them is digital transformation. So I'm really delighted to be here and be able to speak on that topic and share a little bit about what we do when it comes to consulting organizations who wants to transform into digital company. Yeah. So that's a little bit about me. I was born in Cambodia, but however I grew up in the United States, lived there for a little bit over 30 years, and returned home about 3.5 years ago, right before COVID. And I really couldn't be happier actually to be in Cambodia during COVID time, because in the States we had quite a bit of impact compared to Cambodia that we've seen, well managed, and there wasn't a lot of impact in terms of the disease. And so very, very happy to be back home. And I'm so happy that I'm able to do some of the work that I do now through the American Chamber of Commerce, leading the Women's Committee, and also really helping to build capacity for Cambodia in terms of talents and skills. So I'm excited to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome. And we are very, delighted and thankful for coming today as well. When it comes to the topic of leadership and digital transformation, maybe we can start with how do you define the digital transformation and leadership in this context? Yeah.
Great question. So maybe we touch on a little bit about leadership. Simply put, leader is talking about someone leading a group of people or an organization. In my opinion, being a leader is not only about title, right? Being a leader is is describing the action of that person in terms of someone who takes risks, challenge the status quo. So yes, this is how it's done, but how could we do it better, right? Some that can motivate others to achieve something new or better. And also their leaders, for me, is the type of people who pursue innovation, not just like an obligation, right? And they focus on not just about themselves and their success, but also on the team and the team's achievement, accomplishment, and someone who's constantly learning. And I think when you focuses on your team and the success of those that you lead, typically you are going to be very much into learning, adapting. So that for me would describe someone in as a leader in an organization. If we talk about digital transformation, it's really the integration of digital technology in all areas of the business. So fundamentally, you're changing how you operate and deliver the value, whether it's product or services to your customers. So in a way, it's a culture change in the company. The organizations continue to challenge the status quo. Again, we talk about when we talk about organization challenging status quo, we're talking about a leader being able to show that we should not just accept things as they are, right? That we need to constantly look at the way we do business and really ask, how can we make it better? And digital transformation is about leveraging technology and the available resources, understanding the data, and leveraging those to be able to make something better. It may not be the whole organization, but some aspects of the organization could become better if we focuses on leveraging technology that's available to us. So that, in a way, is what we would consider digital transformation in an organization, is when you look at every single aspect of your business and say, how could we make it better, faster, more cost-effective, to those sort, just being more innovative. Yeah. So that's what I would describe as leaders, leading organizations, or even this notion of digital transformation.
True. I agree with you, Bong. I call it like you, Bong. Okay?
Yes, of course, no worry.
Yeah, I agree. Especially like in terms of leadership, the difference between like what we call responsibility and applications. It's not just leader, it's not just like just follow JD. Okay, it's not my job, it's not something, okay, I have done my thing, so it's not the thing that I have to do. So leaders should play another role, that ongoing learning. I agree all the definition that you mentioned. And back to our topic, because you have been like living in States and then you came back in Cambodia. So how do you see like the status of this transformation in Cambodia here? And also with that, how do you see the futures of Cambodia?
Okay. So as I shared before, I've been here for about 3.5 years. So really what I've experienced was more COVID era, really, throughout my stay in Cambodia. So I did pull up some reports just to understand a little bit more about what took place before I came. And the most recent one right before COVID was the 2019 Global Competitive Report of 2019, published by the World Economic Forum, Cambodia's digital connectivity, where they talk about the connectivity and the readiness of Cambodia back in 2019 as being ranking as the 8th place out of the 10 ASEAN countries. So meaning that we're quite far behind compared to other countries back in 2019. I know there's a lot of changes that took place during COVID. A lot of startup in digital technology has also increased. And I mean, it's not just Cambodian, but if we're talking about in the Cambodian context, it really pushes us to become more innovative. I mean, one of the great examples are groceries shopping, right? Where that probably didn't exist back before COVID, where you can shop online for groceries, food delivery and things like that. And you can see that there's a huge increase exponentially on the services for online shopping, whether it's grocery or food delivery. So, and that makes people overall having a desire to learn about digital, about technology, and how to use it. Either as a customer, how to use it so I can order, so I don't have to go outside of my home, go into the shopping and be among other people, and also as a business, how can I serve my customers that won't come into the shop, right? There's a delivery service that we could leverage, right? And then also it makes the delivery service, which is the third party, to also increase in their innovative ideas on how they can make it easier, how they can make it more convenient for customers by looking at the way that their app is created. And so I think overall, Cambodia is moving towards an advancement in digital. So I pulled some report, like I said, about back in 2019, and then in middle of 2021, our government has promulgated the Cambodian Digital Economy and Society Policy Framework for 2021 all the way to 2035, which sets a long-term vision to build a vibrant digital economy and society by wanting to promote digital adoption, to transform all sectors in Cambodia. And the purpose of that transformation is to expand the use of digital information and knowledge across everyone, right? Consumers and businesses alike. And then there's also talks about, what in that ecosystem, in advancing the adoption of digital, who are the key players in that ecosystem. So then it touches on having an enlightened government that also focuses on digital and innovation for the economy, for society, and then a well-educated citizens. And I think we're well on our way in terms of having everyone be very knowledgeable about using technology to make things better and more efficient. Savvy entrepreneurial sector, and that is really touching on what Decho startup are doing now, and some of the supporting organizations to support entrepreneurs who really just want to build their business on technology. You don't see that in the past, right?
True.
So now when people talk about becoming an entrepreneur, I mean, the first thing they think about is how do I do this digitally? It's not about how do I go and find a space to open a shop.
Yes.
Right? Now they're thinking, what can I start? What can I do to serve this segment of the customer, this segment of the market, whatever, digitally? So, so having that entrepreneurial mindset, and I think we're on the way there. Good physical infrastructure, that's also important. And I think when we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about not only the support in terms of funding, the environment to support it, but also some of the technology, like being able to really pick up on this advancement into 5G, right? So allowing the resources of having people leverage digitalization faster, more affordable, and more convenient. And just to close on that topic, the Prime Minister Hun Sen had said that he strongly believed Cambodia shall strive to achieve digital transformation and turn Cambodia's economy and society towards a higher level of development.
True.
And so I think some of the things that I just touched on now will certainly help us get to a society where all of us are used to using technology in our daily life, more and more so. Yeah.
Okay, so when we're talking about this, yes, I think thank you for elaborating and bringing some kind of the fact that you see in terms of in Cambodia, like digital transformations. But how do you see, this is the visions, like the trend that Cambodia is going on. But when you're working with the organization, business, do you see the challenge, the barriers among them? Yeah, because from I myself, I can see digital skill is something new, especially for SME or something. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So the last few minutes we talk about what the government really wants in terms of a developed society, developed businesses, right? In terms of being more technologically savvy, and of course, you know, that's a vision. So quite similar to a company having a vision, right? There are going to be challenges. And some of the challenges that we experience when talking to companies about becoming more digital or going through digital transformation, some of those does go back to the fact that where we don't have any schooling or proper training when it comes to digital skill, right? So employee pushback, and that's probably one of the biggest challenge company faces is the employee pushback. And I'll tell you why there's an employee pushback when you talk about transforming your company, right? It's because there is a lack of knowledge or education around the changes that needs to happen in an organization. The knowledge of how to use the technology, right? The lack of understanding can really scare people, right? Like if you go into something you don't know, you don't want to do it, right? If you don't understand how it could help you, you don't understand how to use it. I mean, simple example, or when maybe smartphone first came out, right? I mean, even till today, you know, example, my father who loves to get new phones all the time, but he doesn't use everything that's available, right? It's because there's no proper training for those things. And when we talk about organization, what we do when it comes to technology is really just on the surface. Yeah, on the very, very simple term, but not really diving deep into how you can leverage all of the different applications that's available to make it better. Yeah. So that's probably the number one challenges that organizations face is to push back for employees. And we're talking about from junior level all the way to senior level. Yeah. But any changes, you're always going to get pushback in an organization. So be prepared for that, I think, for organization that wants to look into changing. Lack of expertise to lead digitalization initiative. So we don't really have any expertise per se in organizations that could lead the transformation in the organization to become more digital. So that will take some time. Organizational structure. We talk a lot about that in organizations on the way they structure. Again, how a lot of companies are structured are very basic. So for instance, you have different functions of the business, right? Necessary, of course, but each of them are only going to do the function of the roles and the task of that function.
Like departments.
Correct. So in a way, the way it's organized, it's efficient to a certain point, but then it limits the ability to transform because you're not understanding the other functions in order to help innovate your process to integrate into another process, another function, into another function, into another function. They all integrate somehow. However, if we don't understand the integration of it, is that we're just doing what we are supposed to do.
Okay. It's like we take care of our own scope without expanding ourselves to understand other scope of the world.
Correct. Then you don't really know that, hey, maybe what I'm doing is not so efficient for the other department, that it's kind of slowing them down, right? So you don't know that unless you know what they're doing and what they need. So that's what we talk about when we talk about organizational structure. Not structuring it the correct way or a way that it will allow for the transformation to come when you need it. Because then you'll have people who's not going to want to integrate because they're so used to silo functions. Lack of overall digitalization strategy. I think this is not just about digital strategy. I think it's a lot of different strategies in the organization. But if we talk about digital strategy, sometimes it's almost like we don't know what we don't know, right? So we don't really take the time to understand our business in a way that we could somehow integrate some of the technology to help make it more digitalized. There's a lot of technology out there already that we could use if we focus on, okay, so in this department you do this and this and this and this. Where can we use some of the technology to come and automate?
Yeah.
So then you put this in, and within minutes, it's done. And it goes to the next department versus you go from one person to the next person to the next person. And then now there's some hold up, right? When it's human, there's always going to be a hold up, whether that person is sick and didn't come to work that day, and then now you're waiting on that person, or they don't really understand how to do it, and then they kind of push it off a little bit, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I think just the not having the right strategy in place to support any sort of ideas that you want to integrate when it comes to either using new technology, or wanting to change the process to become more digital. Lack of limited budget, that is not just for digital, but I have to say when we look at limited budget, I feel that if it's important enough, they will make the changes necessary to have enough budget to support for that process of transformation. So when we talk about limited budget, it's because we're not thinking long term, in my opinion, right? We're thinking it's cost, right? Oh, we don't have the budget set for that, right? It's going to cost X amount of money, right?
True.
But we don't think that, yes, it's going to be needed, right, in order for us to reach our 5 years transformation or 3 years transformation goal. So I think this also, the limited budgets, I think also has to do with the limited strategy for long term. For long term. So you're not thinking about investing now for the future. You're thinking about, hey, if I invest now, it needs to come to fruition now, So that's my opinion about when a company says they have limited budget or don't have any budget to support. It's not that they don't have it. I think every company can set aside some budget, but really having to break down the different process and where they can cut that down. So those are some of the challenges that we see in the workplace.
Yes, true.
For digital transformation.
I have a lot of questions, when you elaborate all these kind of points, like when we talk about like readiness of the employees, like the pushback when the organization try to go digital, and the organization structures, strategies, and also like the budgets. I think there's so much like challenge and barriers for organizations. So based on your expertise, like you think like, because the future is like blurry, we don't know the futures. But from you think that going digital or digital transformation is really compulsory for organizations, or like is it worth it for them to move on?
First, you have to understand why you want it and how is it going to benefit your company. So it may not be for every organization, but until you really understand the need to transform, you are going to always run into this problem of not setting the budget for it, or not believing in it, and not pushing for that transformation. So what I can do is maybe share with you how leaders can tackle some of the challenges that we talk about, because one of the ways that we have helped them is also to really look at their organization, figure out, is this what they need to transform? every organization, I think nowadays, need to look at transformation as a change that they must accept rather than a change that is optional.
True.
Because the world is changing and it's moving, you know? So we can't say we don't want to change. We don't want to say, we've been doing great already. Because as you know, things like the pandemic, right? How many companies fail? So many, even the larger one, right? Because they're not ready for the change.
Yes.
And when it came, they didn't know how to change, right? So we cannot sit here and say, well, do I want to transform? Do I want to change? Is it worth it? Change something or change everything. Whatever you need to do, you need to constantly change. And when I said change, I mean you have to constantly look at the market that you're serving. Because the consumers are changing. Right? They're not shopping the way they shopped before.
True.
You know, they're not looking at things the way they used to look at it before. And they're not willing to accept the service as they have before. So guess what? You have to change to that, right? So like I said, you don't want to look at change as whether or not it's an option, but how much change do you want to do? Depends on your capacity and your organization and the stage that it's in. So that's to answer your question about, you know, is it worth it for organizations to change?
Yeah, it's worth it. I agree with you. It's like comparing to the situations of the organization before and after COVID, you can see how the digital skill can leverage, you know, like the organization performance, especially like how fast the organization can adapt to the change. For example, in terms of like using the Zoom, like distance learning, yes, like change the way that we work, yes, because like before people, for example, like when it comes to meeting, people must like, you know, like physically meet up and to discuss. But right now, we can save a lot of time, you know, like to manage the time, whether it is important enough to meet in person or we can like meet virtually. Yes, okay, I agree with this thing. So from you, what do you think about like in terms like, you know, like organization level that they need to adapt into the digital transformation, whether it should start from the leader in the organization or it should be start from somewhere else. Yeah, and if the leaders play the important role in the digital transformations, what are the key important traits for them?
Okay, thank you for that question. Let me walk through several steps that we take with organizations that want to lead in transforming their company. We call it prepare for climate change. Climate for change. So when we talk about climate, we talk about the environment. And when we talk about environment, we talk about your staff and the way you operate your business. So the first step to digital transformation is to, like I mentioned before, is establishing why. Why do you want to transform? And there are a few questions that you can ask yourself, your team, your management team, your key stakeholders. Does your company needs to improve customer service or reduce some errors, right? So those are some of the more simple reason why maybe you need to start changing or adopting some of the technology to help, right? To better serve your customers or to reduce the number of errors when you solely depend on human, right? Do you have poor internal communications, right? So, so you want to ask those questions because when you figure out that a lot of things could be taken care of by communicating more, and whether, you know, especially for organization, maybe across having different operation center in different markets, you know, maybe set up more recurring. Now it's easier, right? Do Zoom call. You don't have to wait till that half year to come together
Yes.
and really talk about what's going on in your market, right? So those are some of the questions you can ask. And then, are you losing business to competitors, right? You should always ask that questions as an organization, right? There's this saying that, you know, it costs more to acquire new customers than it is to retain new ones, to retain existing ones.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So, do you know if you're losing customers? How much are you losing? You know, how many customers are you losing? And what does that equate to in dollar, in currency, right? Where is your business fragmented right now? So, meaning that when we talk about fragmented, meaning where's the breakdown in your business, right? And you can easily get that in different departments. They were always telling you, oh, I don't know why we have to do this, you know, I don't know why I have to do it this way. Or I don't know, can we make this faster, you know, my customer's waiting too long, whatever, right? Or the customers complain that it's waiting too, whatever it is. So find out where some of that fragmented is happening in your, in the operation cycle. Where do the breakdown occur in each of the area of the business? Does everyone understand their role and the business vision? So it's hard to get buy-in from employees and key stakeholders if you don't have a vision for where you're going. Yeah, especially if you want to transform the business, you must understand what is it that you want to achieve. Yeah, and so that's where, does everyone understand that? So that's a question you have to ask your staff. How well does information flow? Again, you know, from one function to the next function, or even from one level to the next level. How does it flow and how easy is it? You know, is there like, you know, the junior would send something and it sits there and they're afraid to go ask, hey, did you get my email? I was asking about this. Maybe they're afraid to even ask, so they're just waiting. And most of the time, it's the customer, right?
Yes.
That is waiting for those information. So understanding how does the flow of your communication work, how effective and efficient is it? So that's preparing for the climate change, meaning understanding first where the breakdown, where are some of the things that could, maybe technology could come into place and help. Better communicating with each other, maybe set up some recurring communication, you know, with one another. Number two is then to create an action plan, right? So not all the solutions that you have for your challenges have to involve technology. But if you're talking about digital transformation, you should kind of understand, have technology be one of the options when you think about, okay, I want to actually make this process a little bit better, right? So have technology be an option and say, okay, maybe there is a system out there that can support this, you know? So this is the way that we go through the exercise when we talk about wanting to transform, wanting to digitalize, right? Is always thinking in a way, okay, if not adding more people, could we use technology, right, to help streamline? So just understanding that helps you to create the plan, okay? What are some other things? One of the key things that I've learned as well when it comes to using technology or transforming something is, although you have like a vision, like if you want to transform your business to become something, right? In the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, using this technology, using these resources to make us better, to make us serve a customer faster or whatever, right? Having some milestones set in your plan. So people are not waiting for 3 years to see the vision realized, right? I mean, could you imagine, you know, like, oh, you know, we have to work really hard for 3 years, right? to see any result. So I think as you create the plan, set some small milestones like a win, you know, to get people continue to be motivated. Maybe if you're talking about including technology, maybe just in 3 months having everyone use the same system to communicate, right? That's a milestone you can celebrate. You know, in 3 months or 6 months, everyone is using the same system to talk to each other. So that's a milestone you can celebrate. So having those win along the way help to encourage your staff to continue to want to go on this journey of transformation as part of your creating the plan. Establishing a change team. So this is I think similar to, I don't know if you know, like project management or agile workplace,
Yes.
where you actually bring in different team members, right, from different functions to come together and work on a project.
Yes.
Yeah, so the same idea is, okay, you want to create change, right? So you have a team that is all about that change.
Mobilize like a team from
Correct.
different departments
Correct.
to be a part of the change.
Correct. And to really be the ambassador, the champion for the change that you want to see. And it's helpful. So it's not always about from the boss, the leader telling you and each one of you guys what to do. I think if you have someone in the team, 1 to 2 people in each team that will champion and believe in the change, you know, and really support their team,
Yes.
you know, through the changes. So that's also a good way to encourage the change and also sustain the changes and help them move along that journey together. 4 is to engage and communicate. So a lot of time, you know, there are some great leaders who like to sit and really think about their own strategy, and they don't really communicate with anybody else, you know. And I don't mean communicate as in telling someone or telling the people or their people, we're going to do this. It's not that. Communicating is about sharing the ideas and soliciting feedback.
Yes.
What do you think of this? Do you think we can do it? If you think we can do it, when can we do it? How can we do it? Who needs to be involved? If we cannot, okay, but we need to change, what else can we do? So when we talk about communication, that's what I meant, not in a way telling someone what to do. This is what we're going to do, you do it this way, right? So really creating that communicating, being engaged and communicate with your staff on a regular basis will really help. And it doesn't just, like I said, have to be the boss. It could be the champion from that function, or most likely the manager in that department to share the updates and the changes. So communicate as often as possible allows people to be engaged and feel like they're part of that change.
Yes.
That they're making the change together. Yeah. Sustain a change in culture, quite similar to what we just talked about, you know, where frequently look at your operation, you know, maybe once a quarter suggest something new that can be done, or half a year suggest something that could be done. So not everybody's so comfortable in just doing the same thing day in and day out.
Yes.
And then when you do need to change, all of a sudden it's like, can't. They just can't change, right? Because they don't know how. They're not used to changing. It's going to be hard. Yes. Or they'll try it and then it doesn't work, or they'll try it and they're not happy and they'll go back to their old way. So keep a changing environment, meaning that you want to somehow change something up here and there on a frequent basis to allow people to say, okay, we got to do something different. Right?
Yes.
And yeah, we can do it. We've done it.
Yes.
6 months ago, 3 months ago, so we can do it again. Yeah. So that's what I have in terms of the steps that we will walk the organization through.
That's good. So
Okay.
yeah, let me write up a little bit so that we are on the same page. So from your suggestion, you can see like to help organization transform digitally, I think it's starting from the leaders having a vision for the whole organizations and break down into the work plan and involving everyone to be a part of the change rather than leader, okay, I want to change without everybody agree on that.
Correct.
Yes,
Correct.
and at the same time building like a good communications, between like the leaders and the followers in order to adapt the change from time to time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. With this, I think I go back a little bit to what you mentioned earlier, like employee pushback. I can see it as a very a main challenge among all, like in terms of like a skill gap, because in Cambodia here, technology is new, digital is new to everyone, including me, I myself. Yeah, I still like struggle like learning things. So as the leaders, what do you think like how they can like tackle the skill gap within their organization or teams in here?
That goes back to some of the beginning questions of, not only why do we want to change, and then allow them to list the reasons why it needs to change, right? Because then they could say, yes, now we understand we need to change. We're losing customers to competitors. We are having too much errors and it's slowing us down. Whatever the case may be, allow them to understand that's their challenge, right? And that's the reason why we need to make something different. So change is just doing something differently than what you're used to doing to see if it's going to get better, right? So I think for leaders to understand those first, and then get to the next thing is, okay, we all want to change. Great, right? Or majority of us wants to change. That's wonderful. So what are some of the things that we need if let's say the change has to do with implementing a new technology to support the communication flow, right? What technology do we need? First off, what technology do we need that can support that, okay? And then after that, then we figure out the comfort level of the employees.
Yes.
And that's where you can assess the skill gap. And of course, anytime you implement something new, we all need to learn. Yeah. So just understanding that, and then going out to acquire the right trainer, the right expertise to come in and help support that implementation and the follow-up, so they can get more comfortable using it, right? So understanding first why your organization need to change, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and so on. And then, okay, great, we know we need to change because we need to do better, because we need to make sure we sustain our company and also grow in the customer base. This is what we need to do. So we'll go out and acquire whatever technology we need, or change certain process that we need to change, and then see where the gap are for the people in terms of their skill set. Yeah, and then help them with experts coming in for the training, like I said, helping them with implementation. There isn't anything out of reach these days, You will have access to anything your heart desire. Whether it's technology, whether it's capacity building. I promise you, it's out there.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of understanding, where do you need it? Who needs it? And how can we make it, how can we support them, right? Because if they believe in the change, they're going to want to make that change. And the best thing we could do is help them to make that change. And so what do we need? Maybe 15 minutes online courses every single day, right? Or an hour once a week for online training. Or having someone come in and help you train and implement and you use it. Yeah, so I think that's where the learning also happens with the leaders.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you're always thinking about innovating your business, your processes, your workplace, you're always going to learn something new. It goes hand in hand. It doesn't stop,
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I think to your question, that's for leaders to do that.
Yeah, you answer it well.
Yeah.
I think people here are gonna learn a lot from what you elaborate on the topic here. So I have one last question. I think it's more like the advice. So based on your belief, how you see the future of Cambodia, So what is your advice to the business owner, organization, and youth to prepare themselves for the digital transformation? Yeah.
Okay. So there's a reason why I went into this business of consulting and capacity building, right? Is because I believe in people and I believe in people's capability or their ability to develop themselves. And that goes from all levels. It's not just the juniors who needs developing, it's also the leaders. We also need to constantly develop ourselves, learn new things, adapt and change as well. So some of the things that I've listed down for traits of leadership in Cambodia, I don't know if some of these might be quite new. So inclusive. So for leader, build a diverse team. So what I mean is you are not going to get as much creativity if your team is not diverse. If you don't have younger people with older people, with maturity, with someone who's just very creative, with someone who knows the process really well, with different genders, male and female. So it has to be diverse for your company to experience creativity in its fullest form. If you have someone in their 30s and all the team are 30, 31, 32, have the same background, I promise you, there's not going to be much creativity happening because we all kind of think alike, right? We all grew up in the same environment. And also environment, so having people from different environment also helps with the inclusivity, but also the creativity can drive for that. Empathetic, so understand other cultures and bring in wider perspective. I think in Cambodia, unlike my experience back in the States, where it's, especially where I live, it's a melting pot of culture. So we have so many different type of cultures, so we have to understand. As leaders, we have to be sensitive and be aware of the different cultures that are being brought into the workplace. In Cambodia, you have a few that are foreigners or expats coming in, but majority of it will be Cambodian, right? So when we talk about empathetic, we're not talking about different cultures, so to speak, because we should all kind of share the same culture in a way, because majority are made up of that culture. But maybe understanding the generation gap. Yeah. So yes, I mean, even for myself as parents, right? We're like, you guys would never survive in my generation, things like that, or stuff like that. So I think it's just understanding the generation gap. What are some of the youngsters going through now? They're on their phone 24/7, right?
Yes.
When for us, when we were growing up, that's not the case, right?
True.
So just understanding that and maybe be a little bit strategic. How do you leverage that, so they can feel like they're doing something they're passionate about, and still contribute to the business. So just being more understanding, I think, of gender differences, of generation differences will help. Agile, work with different and adapt to new environments. So this is still for leaders. So a lot of leaders, I think in Cambodia has gone to their position because they have climbed up or gained that experience, to be the manager of that department or whatnot. But understanding that the way you've done things in the past may not work for what is currently happening in the marketplace. So be agile, meaning that be flexible. Even the way you think, you have to also question, okay, I did that and it was quite successful, but is it going to work this time around? Right? So just being able to be flexible in your own mind. Working in an agile place where you're much more flexible. Be open. So yes, we all have our own bias. An assumption. We're like, I thought you were going to do that. That's an assumption, right? So be open to the fact that not everybody, even within your age group, think and act the same, you know? So just understanding that they come from they look at things from a different lens. We look at things from our own lens, whether that is from our past experiences, whether it's from our own upbringing, whatever the case may be, right? So just be open for varieties of different opinions, meaning that you're willing to listen and you're willing to consider and think about it. Influential, so build trust and solve complex challenges. As leaders, you know, a lot of time people look to you for answers, which is true. It doesn't mean that you always have to have the answers. So the best leaders are always going to be, how would you solve it? You know, what would you think is best, right? So just be able to gain that feedback. Being able to get opinion can also help you, right? So in a way, that is influential in a way that I feel it's more conducive to supportive environment than being influential, telling people what to do. You know, that could be influential, right? But it's not going to bring a lot of creativity. It's not going to bring a lot of changes to your organization if they can't even think for their own. You know, how, if it was me, I would do it this way, right? You don't know that, right? As a leader, you don't ask. And you don't influence people that way. So those are some of the key points that I could share when it comes to leaders, especially in digital transformation. And we're talking about for junior staff, for the youth, starting their career. So obviously we talk a lot about digital transformation. So of course, digital knowledge is definitely the top of the list, right? No matter what you major in, please learn how to use a computer, learn how to use the Word, the PowerPoint, all those basic things that you absolutely must know how to use. Maybe not in depth, but at least know how to use it. If you need to write an email, you can write an email. If you need to create a PowerPoint presentation, you can do that.
Yes.
So please become digital literacy for yourself.
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter what role, what position, what you're going to go into. It is always going to be helpful. Problem solving. Okay. So I know in general, we like to look at things and say, oh, we don't say that's a problem. We say, oh, that's too difficult, right? Or we look at something and we said, okay, well, it's okay, it's not great, but that's how we've done it, right? That's a problem. We don't say it's a problem, but that's a problem, right? So what we need to look at, okay, of course we can say that is a problem, or we don't have to say it, but at least we can say problem solving. So how could we make it better, right? So always think of how could we make this better, right? Or what can we do differently? If this is not working, what can we do differently?
Yes.
Don't just continue to do the same thing, you know, because it's comfortable.
Yes.
Global citizenship. So that, I think a lot of the youth has that already. And what I mean is that they're now very much exposed to the worldwide, you know, access to information. Yeah, so I think one of the knowledge base is building yourself is understanding some of the other things that are happening in other country, or exploring new technologies that are coming in. Yeah. Youth entrepreneurship. Of course, not everybody should go in and do their own business.
Yes.
But I will tell you, and maybe you can share a little bit about the Techo startup community. But when you think of doing your own business or having your own idea as a business, I think there's a lot of creativity that go into that.
Yes, true.
There's a lot of problem solving that you could use. There's a lot of looking at problems. There's a lot of looking at what's the solution for that. There's a lot of thinking behind that.
Yeah.
And if you have that mindset and you go into your workplace, I promise you that you will be so much further in advance than other people. Because now you're not just looking at your role as finance, going in there and punching in numbers, right? and making sure the numbers balance. Now you're kind of thinking, you know, oh, maybe we could do it, you know, we could lower down this cost, you know, or questioning why do we have so much in this, you know, could we maybe get another vendor, you know, so I think there's a lot of thinking and creativity behind entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah, true. From us, actually, we try to encourage, you know, people not to, you know, like to run a startup all the time because entrepreneurs are not for everyone. Yeah, we believe in that. You know, for some people they are born to be entrepreneur, but for some people they are not born to be that. But when we talk about entrepreneurship skill, is another thing. We believe that entrepreneurship skill is for everyone. People should, you know, adapt it and apply it in their daily life, in their careers. It's gonna help them a lot, like changing their mindset from doing like in our own scope, but looking at their career in different perspective. As entrepreneurs, they look at the problem and solution.
Yeah, and I get that sense when I'm working with startups, you know, is that they're really constantly thinking, innovating, which is really, really cool. And that could really be taught in the established businesses, right? the staff of the established businesses. Curiosity and love of learning. So I think that technology will help people to become curious. And the love for learning. And we don't mean the word learning as in reading books all the time anymore. We're talking about just learning how to do something. I'll give you an example. During COVID, a lot of us take up cooking and baking. Right? So we're learning something new, right? So it doesn't just have to be a reading book, but it's just a curiosity will actually lead you to learning something new all the time. Communication skills. That is across. It's not just for youth, it's for everybody, adaptability and cognitive flexibility, so just the way that we approach things, don't be so stickler, meaning don't be so solid about that position or that idea or that thought, right? Be flexible to change, because what you think may not be the case. And we go through this with startup when they have an idea. Have you test out and have you tried it and does it work? You have test out, have you tried it with the market that you want to serve? Do they see some benefit in it, right? But yeah, so for youth it should always be flexible, accessing, asserting, analyzing. So I think we have a lot of information thrown at us every single day. We get access to millions, billions of data.
Information, data.
Yeah. The downfall to that is that we don't really allow ourselves to analyze, to really slow down and analyze what we're seeing, what we're hearing, and what we're learning, what we're reading. Everything's just kind of passed by. Good example is Facebook, right? I mean, if I was to ask you, what did you see 30 minutes ago on Facebook? If you were on Facebook, you probably cannot tell me. Because it's just gone by like that. You know? You didn't analyze it's not like you looked, you said, that's interesting. I wonder if, you know, it's like we don't take the time to do that. And so I think in organization, when we go to work every single day, we do the same thing. We don't really analyze anymore. Like, maybe I could do something a little bit different. You know, in this part, you know, because it's always taking me so long, right? So analyzing is really one of the skills that we should pick up, especially with a lot of data now available. You know, we have a lot of metrics that we can use, but if we don't analyze it and how to leverage it, we don't really know how to use it to our benefits. Yeah, so the analytic skills also is required. Self-knowledge and emotional intelligence, that pretty much can go towards what we covered earlier, you know, just being more curious, understanding, and picking up on things to learn. And so that's just maybe 9 or 10 of the things that I would say.
Yeah, wonderful.
Really
I
great
think it's so much, like a lot of good, good key points that we can pick up and learn from you today. So I think it's the end of the session for now. But do you have any last message to our audience who are watching the episode right now?
I just want to say thank you if you're tuning in to listen. This is also part of that advice is to constantly learn new things. And so by listening to podcasts like this, and not 100%, of course, we can never pick up anything at 100%. But if we pick up a couple here, a couple there, and actually use it, right? Or put it into place and practice it, this is where the development and the change will happen. So I am appreciative of you having me here today.
Yeah.
And really hoping that that through the sessions between you and I, that we have given the viewers some good tips that they could use, some advice that they could go back and start thinking.
Yes, okay. Thank you so much for sharing today. I think this is a very insightful sessions. I learned a lot from you today. Okay, so if you are hearing this message, you must have listened to entire episode. And for that, we would like to thank you for, watching so much. And if you have any questions or maybe like the topic you want us to cover next time, please leave a comment below. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next episode.